Today, we will be looking at an action, sports, shonen anime called Keijo. Episode 1. At a Keijo race in Nishinomiya Stadium, Nozomi Kaminashi and Sayaka Miyata spectate Kyoko Shirayuki as she emerges victorious. Excited after the race concludes, Nozomi declares her goal of enrolling in a school to become a Keijo player herself. Upon arriving at Satochi Keijo Training School, Nozomi struggles with carrying her luggage into the dormitories and asks Sayaka for help, who promptly refuses. The two girls then notice an abundance of reporters and media coverage present at the front of the school, with Sayaka remarking how popular Keijo is. Nozomi suddenly rushes toward a group of reporters and begins to tell them all about herself, when Sayaka reminds her to pick up her luggage. However, as Nozomi responds to Sayaka, the reporters recognize Sayaka and all rush toward her to learn her motive after leaving judo. Satomi Shiomi then approaches Nozomi and attempts to interview her while taking photos before being dragged away by Jun Sasaki, who reprimands her for interviewing someone who made it in by sheer luck instead of students in the elite class. When Shiomi reminds him that he was the one who instructed her to interview promising students, he suggests that she interview elite students such as Rin Rokudo or Kotone Fujisaki. Shiomi protests, stating that Nozomi was impressive during her entrance exam performance. Turning to Nozomi to interview her again, Shiomi asks her about her ambitions. Nozomi then does several backflips and lands on top of a Keijo symbol monument and states her goal to become the richest Keijo player in Japan. The two then explore the school's practice race area, with Nozomi unable to contain her excitement about returning to fight on a land. Sayaka then reminds her of her racing performance at the entrance exam 6 months prior, much to Nozomi's chagrin. During the entrance exam, Ujibe Nagisa proctored the final test, which consisted of a mock race on a road-type land. Nozomi asks Ujibe if personally eliminating more participants would increase an individual's score during the exam. When Ujibe confirms this, the rest of the participating girls cheer in excitement. While loading onto the land, Nozomi remarks to Yuko Oshima how the road-type land was larger and more stable than what she was used to, with Sayaka stating that those features would not necessarily make it easier to maneuver around. When the mock race started, each participant waited around to survey the others to see who would make the first move. Sayaka notes that attacking would require traveling across platforms via unstable, narrow paths. Nozomi makes the first move towards Yume Miki, dropping her heel into the water to create a visual obstruction and then striking Yume from the cover of the water. Yume recovers and reprimands herself for lowering her guard and proceeds to attack Nozomi back. Sayaka observes Nozomi from the other side of the land, but is confronted by Kagami Oguri, who believes Sayaka was unaware of her surroundings. Sayaka is then cornered by Kagami, Sachiko Yamikumo, and Sayo Miyahama. Yume then injures Nozomi's thigh, mocking her for not being accustomed to the road-type land. Nozomi attempts to retreat, but is cut off by Miho Ono. However, Nozomi can escape their pincer movement and uses butt cannon to knock them both off the land, eliminating them from the mock race. Sayaka easily disposes of and eliminates two others using her speed, thanks to her past judo skills. Nozomi is then cornered again, but is saved when Hanabi arrives. Hanabi quickly eliminates an enemy, knocking her unconscious before falling overboard, shocking the rest of the girls, with Nozomi unable to comprehend what had just happened. Heading over to Hana and Asuka, Hanabi playfully mocks the two for being incapable of effectiveness outside of grouping together, calling them bullies. After dispatching those two in the same manner, Hanabi then turns to Nozomi. Hanabi attempts to take out Nozomi with the same attack yet again. Nozomi ducks her head so her face lands within the middle of Hanabi's buttocks. Nozomi deduces Hanabi's method of attack by striking her opponents by the chin to rattle their brains. Hanabi also expresses her surprise at Nozomi figuring out her attack and becomes excited to fight against such an opponent in an otherwise dull and boring mock race. Meanwhile, Sayaka duels against Sachiko. Sayaka takes advantage of Sachiko's perception of Sayaka's ineffective small breasts by surprising Sachiko with a butt attack, knocking her overboard. Hanabi uses butt guillotine against Nozomi, who swiftly dodges the attack. However, the damage accumulated throughout the whole mock race leaves Nozomi tired and out of breath. Nozomi then switches tactics from dodging to going on the offensive, using bust-to-bust attack to nullify Hanabi's pinpoint attacks. By being in close range, Nozomi then tries to force Hanabi off the land using brute force, which leads to a back-and-forth frontal push between the two. When Nozomi surprises Hanabi with another strike, Hanabi expresses her excitement again, praising Nozomi for her resourcefulness. With 30 seconds left in the race, Nozomi resolves to brute force Hanabi off again. However, Hanabi begins her maneuver to attack Nozomi's chin, catching her by surprise. Nozomi manages to narrowly dodge it, remarking how using the same technique repeatedly can decrease its effectiveness if the opponent gets used to it. Nozomi begins her final string of attacks, but is, ironically, struck in the chin. As Nozomi falls into the water, Hanabi thanks her for an entertaining race. While underwater, Nozomi laments her loss, but is still amazed at the number of strong opponents she has faced. Back in the present, Nozomi remarks that she used to be content by just being a Keijo player, but her defeat at the hands of Hanabi caused her motivation to win to rise. Although she had received an acceptance letter after the entrance exams concluded, she was still unsatisfied about the loss. Nozomi then asks Sayaka about her reasons for aspiring to become a Keijo player, after leaving a prodigal and promising judo career. Sayaka states that she wants to wear cute swimsuits, as Keijo players do. The two then remember witnessing the professional race at Nishinomiya, and then look forward to their time at Setochi. Inside the dormitories, Nozomi and Sayaka search for their assigned room and run into Yuko Oshima. Nozomi is delighted to see that Yuko had also passed the entrance exam, but Yuko laments being placed into the regular class. She then states how room 309, Nozomi and Sayaka's assigned room, is rumored to house failing students who drop out early, being dubbed the empty room. When Nozomi and Sayaka enter their room, they are greeted by Non Toyoguchi, and the three introduce themselves. Their fourth roommate, Kazane Alba, sits quietly and aloof on her bed reading a magazine. While deciding which beds to use, Non accidentally trips over her bag handle, who then tries to cover up her clumsiness. Nozomi attempts to break the ice with Kazane, but fails after accidentally tearing off a corner of a page in the magazine she was reading. Nozomi, Kazane, and Non then all frantically try to resolve the issue while making a mess, which causes Sayaka to exit the room, burying her head in despair of spending the whole school year with her new roommates. Episode 2. After beginning their morning with a training exercise, we are shown the marvelous dining that the students of the academy experience, only paling in comparison to the pampering of the elite class. Nozomi begins to gradually tire of the physical and academic training, desiring to go out on the land. Students from the regular class then perform their routine, including dashes, pull-ups, and Keijo-style tire rolling. As the regular class continues their training regimen, they all show signs of improvement. Sometime later, their instructor, Hitomi Hokuto, takes them to the beachside for new training. This training is known as hip toss, which involves a team of 4 rallying a volleyball using only their butts without dropping it. While simple at first, strong winds blow around the shore, making it difficult for room 309 to tell where the ball will land. Moreover, their coordination and teamwork are poor, causing them to bump into each other. After the dismal showing, Sayaka theorizes that this exercise is about teamwork, and whether or not the 4 of them can work well together after only a week's worth of time spent. One of the biggest issues is Kazane Alba's silence, as she barely talks with any of them. Attempts are made to foster communication and a way to pass the training, but none of them work. During the examination day, Nozomi notices Kazane walking to the location where the ball goes, and wants to declare her the leader, but Kazane rejects the notion. Nozomi then comes up with a plan, reading her ponytail and hand signals, and saying them out loud to her teammates. As it goes on and they match the highest score, Nozomi reads one of her signals wrong, and forces Kazane to speak the right coordinates, in which Nozomi gets the final hit to pass the high score. As it turns out, Nozomi got the coordinates wrong on purpose, so she can finally speak. It comes off as ironic, as Nozomi made fun of Non's accent earlier, which made Kazane self-conscious from speaking with a country accent herself. Episode 3. After accidentally unleashing the vacuum butt cannon during a trial race against Ujibe, Sayaka, Kazane, and Non, they all have their swimsuits torn as a result of the shockwave, exposing their torsos. Nozomi suddenly leans into Non as a result of the hip damage caused by using the technique, and is promptly carried to the infirmary by medics. The teachers, Ujibe, Hokuto, and Kobayakawa, discuss what had just occurred, with them concluding that the technique Nozomi used was the rare vacuum butt cannon. In the bathing area, Nozomi is mostly recovered from her injuries. Sayaka then details the lesson Nozomi had missed, which was the classification of Keijo players. Infighters for up-close power, outfighter for speed and confusion, and counter for using opponents' movements against them. Upon learning the player types, Nozomi deduces Sayaka would be an outfighter due to her speed-based combat style. As Nozomi still wonders what caused their swimsuits to tear, Hanabi Kawai and Mio arrive from a spa treatment, with the former stating that Nozomi's attack had broken through the swimsuits. While Nozomi was revived from Kazane's massage, Hanabi applies a pinch to pressure points on Nozomi's back, which appears to relieve all of the pain. Bringing the subject back to Nozomi's earlier technique, Hanabi asks if Nozomi was attempting the vacuum butt cannon, though Nozomi is still unaware of what she had done earlier. When Hanabi explains what had happened, she also mentions that even professional players have trouble using it, and those who have mastered it have become prize queens, which greatly excites Nozomi. Nozomi then resolves to master the technique so she can obtain a life of luxury. Off towards the side, Rin Rokuro, also nicknamed Rinrin, remarks that Nozomi is too good for the regular class, and introduces herself as the fastest outfighter in the West. When Nozomi asks if Rin is an outfighter based on her claim of fastest in the West, Rin demonstrates by performing a flurry of countless attacks, too fast for either Nozomi or Sayaka to count how many strikes she had done. Rin then invites Nozomi to train with the elite class, while leaving behind her weak roommates, which annoys Sayaka. When Nozomi protests, stating that the regular class also has good fighters, Rin responds by saying that all regular class students are mundane and all on the same level. When Rin brags about how laughable it is that no regular class students are in the same league as her, Sayaka sees this as a challenge. Once the elite class girls leave, Nozomi and her roommates discuss the upcoming class exchange race. Sayaka then disdainfully leaves Nozomi, sarcastically congratulating her on being invited by Rin to train with the elite class. Sayaka then resolves to become faster than Rin after her earlier arrogant and condescending remarks. The next day at the practice race arena, Sayaka, Kazane, and Non are sorted into their fighting styles by Hokuto, while Nozomi is sent to Ujube in the staff room. There, Ujube commends Nozomi for being able to perform the vacuum butt cannon, but then forbids her from using it. When Nozomi protests this, wanting to become a prize queen, Ujube tells her of the dangers and consequences of overusing said technique, namely a notoriously well-known career-ending injury, with implications to Ujube's past and failing to use the move properly. Nevertheless, Nozomi states her resolve of becoming as good of a Keijo player as possible, not wanting to suffer another defeat, as she had against Hanabi at the entrance exams. She then bows down and begs Ujube to teach her the vacuum butt cannon, stating she would do anything for it. In response, Ujube hands Nozomi a UTM and instructs her to wear it for a whole month to test her resolve. At the practice arena, Sayaka, Kazane, and Non are surprised upon seeing Nozomi wearing the suit. Having much difficulty adjusting to the extreme tightness of the UTM, Nozomi is painfully forced into numerous silly poses, which causes confusion to nearby witnessing students. During a practice exercise on top of a road-like land, Nozomi's movement is impaired to the point where she struggles with a simple walk. She suddenly slips and falls off into the water, frantically flailing her limbs as the UTM's extreme tightness prevents her from swimming. Nevertheless, Nozomi is still determined to keep the UTM on and master the vacuum butt cannon. Meanwhile, Sayaka runs past numerous students on the land, but states that her current speed is still not enough to match Rin's. Over the next several days, Nozomi's daily life is made considerably inconvenient thanks to the UTM. At the cafeteria, Nozomi struggles with eating, as a piece of her fried chicken accidentally flies on Non's plate, who joyfully eats it, much to Nozomi's chagrin. At night, she cannot sleep comfortably due to the suit's tightness. A few days later, still struggling with movement, Nozomi again declares her resolve to master the vacuum butt cannon. At a gym indoors, Sayaka practices quick butt strikes, but as she tires out, feels that she is missing something that would help her improve her speed. Remembering Rin's flurry of attacks at the bathing area, she also declares her resolve to win. Later, at the bathing area, Non catches Kazane attempting to hold another student's butt. When Kazane explains her intentions, Non helps her out by opening a small massaging clinic for the rest of the students. When Yuko arrives as the first customer, Kazane analyzes her butt and techniques through the massage using her scanning hand. She repeats this process for the rest of the numerous students waiting in line for a massage. While changing, Nozomi partially removes some of the ETM to relieve the strain and complains to Sayaka about how tight it is. Nozomi then states that if it weren't for the UTM covering her whole body, she would be able to move faster. This makes Sayaka realize that in order to move faster, she would need less surface area on her swimsuit, which is also the thing she needed in order to improve her own speed. Nozomi then receives a massage from Kazane, who tells Nozomi to relax to minimize the strain on her muscles from the UTM. Later that night, Nozomi practices breathing exercises to relax, and is able to move much more freely and considerably, no longer being restricted by the UTM's tightness. While practicing in the gym once more, Sayaka secretly develops the K acceleration, and becomes confident that it would make her faster than Rin. Later, while taking a shower, Nozomi comments how the UTM feels tighter than before. Non then calls out to Nozomi, informing her of the schedule for the class exchange race. On the day of the class exchange race, Ujibei announces the opportunity for regular class students to advance to the elite class. The races are divided into 4 students, with 1 elite and 3 regular class members in each race. Nozomi is placed into Kotone Fujisaki's race, and wonders what she's like. Rin comes over and states how unfortunate it is that she and Nozomi would not race against each other, and again insults the rest of the regular class students. Ujibei then calls over the participants of the first race, which includes Rin, Sayaka, Kururu Nemoto, and Harumi Konishi. A seesaw land is selected for the first race, with Nozomi and Sayaka wondering how much it differs from a regular land. Nozomi then apologizes to Sayaka, stating that she should have stood up for her while Rin was insulting the regular class, but Sayaka insists it's fine. Nozomi then encourages Sayaka to win, and they both depart with a high five.